Well, good day, A Beers. Mr. C coming to you from the home studio. I hope you're having a good day. Just to review, our second fundamental theorem is up on the board. You can see the derivative of an integral from a to some upper bound x of f of t dt is just f of x. So I replace t with the x value. But if I differentiate an integral with an upper bound of u, where u is more than just plain old x, then I replace t with that upper bound u times the du value. Okay? So those are the mechanics of the second fundamental theorem. Today we're going to look specifically at its application. Okay, I'd like you to take your handout that I labeled on the classroom of velocity example 1, and they're telling us it's below is a graph of the car's velocity with respect to time once the brakes are applied. So remember, we've done rate of change graphs before. Well, that green really doesn't want to erase, does it? Okay. So I'm going to do a sketch of this graph. You should have it on your handout. Pay attention to it. This actually does intersect at 6 seconds. There's 4, there's 2, and I'm going to say for the sake of discussion that we begin up here at 65. Now, again, this is feet per second, and this is seconds. Which is kind of bizarre if you think about it. Does a graph of velocity. This would be feet per second. All right, in any case, they call this curve g of t. I think it would be more useful, honestly, if we call it v of t, because it's a graph of velocity. I didn't make this handout up, but I'm going with it. And our job in part A is to create an accumulation function f, which represents the distance traveled by the car after the brakes are applied. Now, let's review what we know about velocity. Remember chapter 2, when we're doing derivatives, we introduced you to derivatives, and we had a position function x of t, and then we took the derivative of x, and then we got velocity, right? Then we took the derivative of velocity, the change of velocity, and we got the acceleration. So remember how these ideas relate. First derivative of position is velocity, and so therefore, if they want an accumulation function, again, they're calling it g, I'm going to call it v, okay? So if you want to change your g to a v, that might be useful. An accumulation function, f of x, I'm going to call it v of t. And this integral is going to start at 0, and it's going to end wherever the upper bound is. Okay? So now what's happening with this? Now, and what does this represent? F represents the distance traveled by the car after the brakes are applied. So even though you're hitting your brakes, you're still moving forward, right? Unless your brakes are super mega caliper Brembo, forget what they call them, ceramic, drilled, rotored. You've got the best brakes in the universe, and you hit the brake pedal and you stop on that dime. You're stopped. Uh, I would imagine the force on your body to stop like that would not feel real good. But in any case, since we don't have those brakes, how long will it take us to brake in 2 seconds? So what we are representing here, folks, when I plug in 2, I get an integral from 0 to 2 of the velocity function. Okay? Which means that this area bound under this curve from 0 to 2 is the accumulated change in position. Okay? Now we're not given an initial position, so let me talk to you about that for a moment. Remember we said the first fundamental theorem we have an initial value, we get an accumulated change, we get a new value. So the question is, well, what's our initial position? And again, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better description, x is 0 for position 0 plus the accumulated change from 0 to x of our velocity function, and that's going to give us, well, maybe there should be f. This should be f. Sorry about that. That's going to give us f of x. Okay? So initial position, and again, they don't give you initial position, so you probably count that as 0 anyway. So answer for part A, the long and short of it is, the answer for part A is given to you in this expression. Okay? So let's go on to part B. Okay, part B. Our job is to approximate the car's braking distance. Now it says using upper sums. We don't do upper sums. It's not part of the AP curriculum. Don't worry about that. But we can use the trapezoidal rule. Again, what's this going to represent? This is going to represent all the area under the curve as an approximation to the definite integral from when you hit the brakes to when you actually stop. Okay? So, part B, we're going to say trapezoidal rule, six trapezoids, n is 6, right? Delta x, we're just going to keep this simple. B minus A over n is going to be 1. Then we're going to go 1/2 delta x. Remember, trapezoidal rule starts with what? Starts with the initial f of A plus 2 of everything in the middle. And then we have your ending value. So what this represents is the 6 trapezoids we can get under the curve to approximate the actual area, which will be f of 6, which will be the, again, this, we're going to use t of 6 to approximate the area from 0 to 6 of v of t dt. That's what we're doing. Sorry, there's a lot of different variables going on here, and keeping them in order sometimes is a challenge for my little brain. So I apologize if I've confused you in some way. Again, remember, I renamed the graph they're calling G as our velocity graph because that's what it's measuring. It just seems to make sense. And we are saying in this case, because f is technically being approximated by t of 6, okay? Which is this. So that's what we're saying. You could put a 6 here too. All right. All right, so you can go on to calculate this. And again, this is an estimate. So based upon the graph, G of 0, I said, is about 65. And then 2G of 1, which is, I said about 47. And then 2G of 2, I said is about, G of 2 is about 35. And then 2G of 3 is about 22. And 2G of 4 is about 10. And 2G of 5, G of 5, which is about 5, and then G of 6 is 0. And so if you go ahead and calculate that summation, you get about 151.2 feet to brake. So when you hit the brakes in about 6 seconds, it takes you about half a football field to stop. So you're definitely not slamming on the brakes. You're kind of casually hitting the brake here. But I'm hoping that you're getting the idea behind the concept of an accumulation integral. All right, let's look at the next example.